extremely sorry. Can you be a little bit closer to your system so that I think it's because you are too far away from the system.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's coming. Now it's coming good.
Okay. Okay. So please let me know if it is again a problem, and I'll just try to realign myself with respect to the audience. So, is this fine?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It's absolutely okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So let's begin with the qualitative research method. So before we get into what qualitative research method is, I thought I'll give you a framework for the entire research process, the interconnectivities between different worldviews, designs, and research methods. So this is kind of a summary which I assume that many of you already know based on what you have studied so far in this summer school. If you look at this, there are different components in this image. There is philosophical worldviews, there is a set of design concepts, then there are different research methods, and then there is a soul, or there is the central part of different types of research approaches, right? So I will not take much time onto it, but something like post-positivism, constructivism, transformative approach, pragmatic approach. I think this is something that you people might be aware, right? So can somebody tell me what is post-positivism, what is constructivism? Anyone, any one of you? Okay, so let me give it a shot. So post-positivism is similar to what we call as a scientific approach. So here we feel that there is a science behind doing any research work, and it's more about quantitative research than it is for qualitative research. So they feel that there is a very deterministic approach to the whole world, and therefore we can do experiments, we can create cause and effect relationships, and therefore they are more like testing the existing hypotheses or existing theories, or criticizing the existing theories by use of data. So that is what positivism is. When we look at the constructivism, this is more towards qualitative research. It is also called as social constructivism. It is typically seen in social construction of reality, where you are trying to understand that all of us, all the individuals who are actors in a particular phenomena, they believe, they behave, they anticipate, or they react to a phenomena in many different ways. So there is no single reality or no single truth. It is all about the meanings that we create about different objects, about different phenomena, and a culmination of that helps you to create a particular type of theory. So here it is used in this. So it is forced by discussions, with the interactions with people. You may have different categories or different ideas in your mind. Those bunch of ideas combine together to give you the constructs which can use to create a particular type of theory. Then we have, on the other side, we have different types of designs, quantitative designs, qualitative, which we are going to look a little bit more in detail, and then mixed methods. So in the case of mixed methods, we basically combine different types of methodologies, could be quantitative, qualitative put together, so that we can increase the validity, the reliability of our research findings, and you can say that it is more generally applicable, or increase the generalizability of how valid is the research finding. All of it is the result of some sort of data. So how do you collect the data? You have questions, you have numerical data, you have textual data, you do some analysis of it, and then you do interpretation of depending on what kind of data it is and what type of method you applied to that particular data. Going forward, when we look at the qualitative designs, okay, qualitative design, there are different there are different types of designs which we use in case of qualitative research. Research designs. Can somebody tell me what is research design? If somebody can explain to me, what do you understand by qualitative designs? Or what is the research design for that matter?
Like qualitative design is like establishing the answers of phenomenon, what, why and how exactly. I think so.
Okay. I see some chat message also.
Seven.
Design means the tools that you will use, the sample size, study centers, yes. So design is like a blueprint, okay? I don't know, what do I do with this voice thing? Have you increased the volume at your end? I'm not very sure. Why this voice is getting obstructive?
Can you connect any earphone or something like that? And it will be better if you can switch off the video. I think that is also taking away a lot of bandwidth.
I can do that. I can do that. Not a problem. Let me just switch off the video, right? That's what you are.
I stopped the video. I have stopped, madam.
Okay, fair enough. So, is this better now? The sound? I'm not getting any voice actually from your side. So, is it better? Can you hear me?
It has marginally improved, madam. Not much. It has marginally improved.
You can our request to the participants that you can increase the volume of your system or computer, because I am getting the voice perfectly all right.
It is at the maximum. When you are speaking, it is loud and clear, but we are not able to hear ma'am properly.
Oh.
Okay.
When you are speaking, it is loud and clear, absolutely clear. But ma'am's voice is not as clear as you. Means it is audible, but you need to pay you lot of attention.
When we are using and voice of
Ma'am, request you to speak very close to the speaker, to the mic. Keep the mic very close to your mouth.
Yeah, Madam Verma, it's all the same using earphone. We are also using earphone, but not getting the kind of voice which can be sufficiently audible.
Okay, no problem.
Ma'am, you're muted, ma'am.
Yep. So is this better now? I'm using my earphones.
Yes, ma'am, it's good.
Okay, fair enough. So let us continue in this fashion. Great. So we were talking about qualitative designs. Let me just sharing my screen again.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, could you please put your PPT on slideshow mode? Yeah, now it is there, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am.
No problem. Good that you pointed. So yeah, so let us. So we were talking about the qualitative design, as some of you rightly pointed out. As I recall, so it's like a blueprint. It's like a process or the set of steps that help you to do a particular research, to help you to understand and answer some of your research objectives. For the qualitative research or the qualitative design, the origin of such type of research actually lies in sociology, humanities, the theory of evolution, and when we look at people's behavior, so that is the genesis for qualitative research designs. And there are different ways in which one can do qualitative research. The first one is called as the narrative research. Okay? Narrative research, it is very commonly used, narratives. What it typically means is that it is about inquiry from humanities. Okay? Or humanities and social sciences subject, which you might have heard of. So the researcher, they study the lives of people and ask one or more individual to provide stories about their lives. So it's more like a storytelling narrative that you hear from your respondents, and then the information which you get, it is retold or restoried by you as a researcher into a narrative chronology. Now, often in the end, what happens that the narrative, they combine views from the participant's life with those of the researcher's life in a collaborative narrative. That also happens. So the narrative type of research is about understanding people's lives and their what in terms of the stories about their lives. The second part is called as the phenomenological research. Phenomenological research, it is coming from philosophy and psychology, in which the researcher describes the lived experiences of individuals about a phenomenon as described by the participants. So, for example, if there is an economic downturn because of COVID, a lot of businesses went out of the market. A lot of companies were shut down, right? So, if we ask them about experiences of those individuals about a particular phenomena which they have lived. So they have seen that phenomena, now that phenomena is over, now they are out of that phenomena. So if we are collecting all those experiences, that makes a phenomenological research, and this description culminates in the essence of the experiences for several individuals who have all experienced the phenomena. So you come, suppose you are doing a study on SME sector, you look at different, you find out different small firms, you talk to their owners, then the CEOs, and ask them about the challenges during COVID scenario, specifically during the lockdown that happened for 2-3 months, how their businesses was affected, what they tried to do, what were the mitigation steps that they did. So that can help you to understand when there is a natural calamity or there is a natural disaster, how does that affect the small and medium enterprises, and what are the ways in which they can combat or prepare the business skills to tackle any such situation which may come up in future. The third, very commonly used, which is called as the grounded theory. This is rooted in sociology. So researchers, they derive general abstract theories of a process, action or interaction, which is grounded in the views of the participants. So we don't say that I'm going to I'm not using transaction cost theory, I'm not using agency theory, I'm not using any of these theories. Rather, I'm developing theories based on the views of the participants. So it involves multiple stages of data collection, refinement, and interrelationship of categories of different types of information. So this is very commonly used when there is no existing theory and you don't have enough data to support any observation that you see in the market. Right? So that is where it's grounded. It is grounded in the observation for the participants' views. The fourth one is ethnography. This is again coming from anthropology and sociology both, where the researcher, they study the patterns of behavior, language, and actions of an intact cultural group. So what happens is, for example, for example, in marketing, we have something called as sales, right? So when we develop sales theories, we do typically ethnographic type of studies where we be a part of some organizations. We are part of some of the sales negotiations that happen, some account planning that happen. So we are kind of part and parcel of that phenomena about which we want to create a particular story. So this is called as ethnography. A lot of theories which are developed for bottom of pyramid people, for rural markets, they are based on ethnography. So you live with them, you understand their challenges. For example, if you want to look at, say, Grameen Bank or microfinancing to rural areas, you may want to stay there for a while, see their businesses, the small segment with the kind of businesses they are involved into their own challenges, the challenges in getting money, getting loans, the challenges in dispensing that, how do they pay back and all those things. If you stay there, be a part and parcel of their daily routine, daily businesses, and you develop a theory that is called as the ethnographic theory. Then, after that, what we have is case study method. I'm going to talk a little bit more about case studies. I'll give you examples of two used in the finance literature as well. So case studies, it's cases about like you can do a single case analysis also. For example, I want to do a case study on say innovative culture in Apple. So that can be done as a case study in which I use their secondary data, which is available in the form of some reports, internal reports, and disclosures that they do in news reports, talking to people in Apple, middle management, senior management, the people who are there in product management who are designing those type of products. So because you are basically using Apple as a case, and you are using different measures to collect your data to do the inquiry, and then this is done over a period of time. So one single company being studied over a period of time, using different data sources, which are then combined later on to design the theory. Great. Now, characteristics of qualitative research. So, as many of you might be aware that quali is a little different from that of quantitative research. So can somebody tell me what do you think are the characteristics of qualitative research that make it different from quantitative research? I'm sure you might have read or might have done qualitative research in some manner.
Madam, a basic reference will be subjectivity.
I'm so
The
sorry.
which we do and the final conclusion. Yeah, am I audible now? Yeah, one of the basic.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, in one word, I would like to say that it's subjectivity. The result which comes with the conclusions which we draw is more subjective in qualitative research.
It's more subjective, and this subjectivity comes from
The interpretation, the way the same research problem can be interpreted and concluded differently by different researchers.
Okay.
Which is not so for quantitative results. When quantitative results, statistical or econometric results come out, the conclusions are well defined. The rules are well defined for conclusion. That is what I would like to say.
Okay, fair enough. Anyone else? Anil is mentioning first-hand information. So can you explain what you mean by first-hand information?
Ma'am,
Yep.
yeah, I think qualitative is more from exploratory point of view. It can be used by research, and quantitative is more by descriptive and causal and all those kind of.
Okay, fair enough. I'm getting some more answers here. Non-numeric, using nominal data. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of qualitative research. The very first thing is the natural setting. So qualitative research, you collect data in the field at the site where the participants experience the issue or the problem under study. So if I'm doing a quantitative study on, say, innovation, I can probably float a questionnaire, and this questionnaire can be given to different sets of people. It could be, and I don't need to be present with them in that natural setting or in that company which is doing the innovation. However, when I'm involved in doing a qualitative research, you collect data at the site of the phenomena which is being discussed or which is being studied. So researchers, they do not bring individuals into a lab, nor do they typically send out instruments to individuals to complete. And therefore, it is actually about talking directly to people, seeing them how they are behaving in a particular situation, act within their context. This is the major characteristic of qualitative research, which sets it apart from the quantitative research. Second important aspect is researcher. Researcher himself or herself is the instrument. So, because you collect data, then you collect data yourself, therefore examining the documents, observing behavior, interviewing a set of people. Okay, now you need to use a protocol. You can use some set of logic for recording the data, but at times it is we as researchers who actually gather and interpret the information and find out that after you have asked a question that, so suppose, for example, in the tourism sector, this was a disaster, this COVID-19 scenario. So I'm also doing research in the tourism sector. So when I asked tour operators, they said that we want some sort of support from government. Okay. So then that's question which I would ask is, what type of support do you? Then they said that we want some sort of financial support, we want some sort of loan waivers or things like that, whatever they mentioned. Then the next question would be, why do you think these things would be useful to you? So the researcher himself or herself is the key instrument. At times we do not rely on any other questionnaire. We build the questionnaire as the discussion proceeds in a particular direction or to probe more into that. Third point is multiple sources of data. It is interviews, it is observations, it is documents, it is audiovisual information. It could be any of these or a mix of these. Unlike a survey-based method where you have a single survey, you have all the data and then as numbers, and then you do some analysis on it. Further, inductive and deductive data analysis. These are two different ways. So qualitative researchers, they typically work in inductive manner, building patterns. We will find out categories and themes from the bottom up by organizing the data into more abstract units of observation. So the inductive process, it's like working back and forth between themes and databases until you have a complete set of themes which describe a particular phenomena. Okay? Deductively, what happens? The researchers look back at their data from the themes to determine if more evidence can support each theme or whether they need to gather additional themes. So it is like inductive means you collect all the data, you do interviews, you do narratives, you collect focus group discussions, you collect all the information and then you look for the patterns. And deductive is once you have seen those patterns or themes, then you go back to the data and find out if there is something more that can be added to the existing theme or the existing theory that you have developed. Participants' meanings is extremely important in case of qualitative because it is about the meanings that they understand. It is about their expectations. It's about their visualization of a particular phenomena. Therefore, in the entire process, researchers, they have to focus on learning the meaning that participants hold about the problem and not about what their own meaning is for a particular phenomena. The other part is emergent in designs. So the research process is always emerging. It may often happen that the initial plan for the researcher is the research that you started with does not fall in place, or some of the phases of these places may shift backward or forward. You may go back to the respondent to ask you more questions. You may go to, you may add few more respondents. Questions may seem, the form of data collection may change. Maybe you were asking questions and now suddenly you want to show them pictures. It can be visual. So it is always emerging. And these shifts, they signal the researchers are delving deeper and deeper into the topic or the phenomena under study. So shifts is not seen as a negative thing or something wrong. Then you look at the holistic account. So in case of qualitative research, the job of the researcher is to develop a complex picture of the problem, whatever issue they are studying, and therefore there are multiple perspectives, there are different factors which are involved in the situation, and generally you sketch a larger picture. Right? Now this larger picture is not a linear model of y equal to ax plus b type of a thing. Okay? But it is a model of multiple factors which are interacting in different ways. So when we look at, say, business-to-business relationships or inter-firm relationships, if we have to do a qualitative analysis to understand business-to-business relationship, there are different factors or different themes that may come into. One is like political scenario, economic scenario. There could be the product or service characteristic. There could be aspects of, say, individuals who are interacting as salespeople or distributors, their own individual characteristics. So the qualitative research tells you that business-to-business relationship actually play under a larger environment which is composed of political, economic scenario and product or services specific scenarios. And then when you ask further related questions, then you try to find out how these scenarios can be interrelated. So we are not here to define or test. We are not here to test a particular theory. So usually quantitative research is done before we take up a quantitative research, because the theory that you develop in qualitative phase can be tested using quantitative data collection and quantitative data analysis mechanism. So I'll just quickly take up this question. Tushar, okay. Can qualitative research be applied to an experimental design? Yes. So Tushar, what do you understand by experiment, if I have to ask you? Then I'll answer this question.
Good afternoon. My name is Tushar.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. This experiment means like, for example, we are giving some mindfulness training for the people to become more and more resilient, right? In that case, I meant that way, to become more and more financially resilient. He gave the training and all. So before and after, if we are doing, it's just giving conducting an experiment. If I want to conduct an experiment, that's what I meant the scenario. So in that case, can I apply qualitative research?
We will not call it an experiment, Tushar, because when we look at the experiment, so if you look at the research terminology, okay, experiment is a word which is used more with the number games or quantitative analysis. You can definitely do qualitative research. In that case, what you can do is, I would suggest do a narrative study. Narratives, or ask them about their experiences before that intervention of whatever mindfulness training that you are giving to them, and after they have received that training. So what is the difference? What is their, do they feel more enabled? Do they feel more empowered in making those financial decisions? Do they feel more knowledgeable? Do they feel that it was really relevant to the kind of problems they are facing in their business scenarios? So those kind of things in the form of a discussion, it can very well be done as part of a qualitative research.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It just strikes me, just to give you an example, I don't know if anybody from here is from the OBHR area, or anybody is an HR in this group, what we have today. HRs do a lot of exit interviews when people are leaving the organization. Those interviews are analyzed qualitatively, because people talk while they are leaving, and the reasons and what they are going to do after that and all of those things. So these are all collected, and then they are used to develop better HR practices in business organizations. So just as it came to my mind. So qualitative research, what is the purpose of qualitative research? You describe a particular phenomena. So in case of recession, should the companies continue to invest into marketing or advertisements or not? So you try to describe that. You try to understand a particular phenomena from a larger perspective, holistic perspective of all the different factors that are working towards that phenomena. You explain a particular phenomena. You identify with the different factors which are there. You develop theories. You generate themes. You generate theories. You generate new constructs which can be used or operationalized later on to be tested through some quantitative techniques. Okay? Great. Now, tell me, which of the following is true about qualitative research? A, B, C, D, 4 options. Categories are established for analysis purpose. Data is usually collected in the lab setting. Focus is on studying the whole. Intuition and extraction are suppressed. Great. So Pinky and Anil and Abhik and Tushar, a lot of people have given the right answer. Yes, it is actually C. So I'll tell you what it typically means is qualitative research. It is more focused to understand the whole, the holistic picture, which is consistent with the holistic philosophy of or say it actually originated from sociology or psychology. When you are trying to understand the whole of the culture, the society, the societal norms, and how a particular group of people behave. So generally the plan for analysis occurs after the data is collected, and data is collected in a naturalistic setting. So wherever the phenomena has happened, wherever the people, target group of people who are affected by the phenomena they reside, we go and collect data from there. And then the researcher often uses intuition while collecting the data and must be able to extract it when you are analyzing it. Qualitative research focuses on understanding, therefore, the meanings which are underlying a particular phenomena or underlying particular for a particular phenomena or event for which you are interested to get the understanding. So good one. So you guys are all on track. Now we come to case research. I saw that somebody mentioned that, what are the different techniques to conduct qualitative research. So I'm going to talk about, depending on how much time do we have, I'll talk about case research and I will talk about Kelly referred two methods I'll talk today. Let us see how much can we really cover. So let us begin with the case research. Now, case research is also called as case study research, and this is a method in which you collect, you intensively study any phenomena for a period of time and within its natural setting. It could be one or multiple sites, wherever the phenomena has happened, which is fine. And there are different methods of data collection. There could be interviews, there are observations, there are pre-recorded documents, which are also called as secondary data, which we will get from their files, from their documents that they maintain for the forms. It could be through the interfaces about the phenomena of the interest, and it could be as rich, as detailed as possible. The case research at times can also be employed in a positivistic manner for the purpose of theory testing or in an interpretive manner for theory building. So either way it can be used. And it is very, very prominent in the business research than in any other social science research. Now, it has a large number of strengths over other research methods. For example, if you do experiments or if you do surveys. The first point is that case research can be used for theory building or theory testing. Whereas if you are doing survey research or if you are doing experiments which are quantitative in nature, they can be used only for theory testing. In case of interpretive research, the constructs of interest, they need not be known in advance, and it can emerge as you collect the data as the analysis starts. That's the first point. The second point is that the research questions can be modified during the research process if the original question is less relevant or salient. You can use something called as probing. You can keep on asking questions to the respondent till you feel that you have got enough information about that particular phenomenon. But this is not possible when you are doing survey research or experimental research, because there is a limitation to the already preset questionnaire is there and preset experiment is there which has to be conducted. So there is no agility or flexibility involved in that. Third point is that case research can help derive richer and more contextualized or more authentic interpretation of the phenomena than most other research methods, because it has an inherent capability to capture a rich array of contextual data. you're using multiple data sources. So you can go as rich as deep as possible to collect that information. And you can collect the information from the perspective of multiple participants. So individual, organization. So you can define different units. You can say that you are doing it at org level, you can do it at individual level, you can do it at business unit level. So finance unit, HR unit, production unit, that all those things can be fine. Now, but there are some weaknesses also for case research, which you also should know because you are getting into research, and there is no experimental control here. So internal validity of inferences can be weak. But this is a common problem for all the research methods except experiments. Except experiments, all the research methods suffer from weak internal validity of the inferences. However, the problem of control can be addressed in case research using natural controls. Therefore, we do this in a natural setting so that we can explain the behavior or the phenomena as close to the reality as possible. Second point is that the quality of inferences derived from the case research, they are very heavily dependent on the power of the researcher. Therefore, we use multiple coders for coding of the text or coding of the interviews or focus group discussion text that we get, because whatever the analysis done by one coder, it is also mapped to the analysis done by the second coder to identify if there is any discrepancy, if there are major discrepancies between the two coders. So that's how you can overcome this kind of a weakness, that there is some sort of subjectivity which can be involved when you are analyzing these scripts. And finally, because the inferences are heavily contextualized, it is difficult to generalize it to other organizations or other contexts. For that, what you have to do is, you have to do multiple case researches so that you can see how the findings of one case can be applied in the other case and what are the differences between different cases if you want to create a theory which has a better generalizability. Now, what are the key decisions in the case research? The first thing is the right method for the research questions being studied. So one thing is clear that this is used for exploratory studies when you want to discover the constructs and areas where theory building is in a formative stage, for studies where the experiences of participants and the context of actions are extremely critical, and for studies which are aimed at understanding complex temporal processes, right? Second is that what is the appropriate unit of analysis? So are you doing it at employee level? Are you doing it at group level? Are you doing it at organizational level? Because then the meanings will be different, even if it is the same phenomena. The third is, should the researcher employ a single case or multi-case design? Single case design is useful at the outset of theory generation if the situation is very unique or extreme. If it is revelatory, the situation has previously been inaccessible for scientific integration, or it is a critical or contrary case for testing a well-formulated theory. The multiple case design is more appropriate for theory testing, as I just mentioned, or to establish the generalizability of inferences, and if you want to have much more richer interpretation of the phenomena. The fourth point is that where should the research be conducted? So which site is most useful? So a company may have different types, different offices, different locations. So where should you be actually doing this type of research? You understand the process of technology implementation in firms. We tend to do a mix of large, mid-size and small firms. So that we can examine whether the technology implementation process differs with the firm size also. So it should be based on convenience, definitely, the size of the sample or site selection, but also it should fit with the research question which is being asked. Okay? And finally, techniques of data collection. So you have interview, which is the most common and the most popular data collection technique for case research. But you can supplement it with other methods also, like observing people, the documents, internal reports, external reports, physical artifacts, devices, output loops, things like that. And finally, you can do what is called as a triangulation, or you validate the observations from all different data sources to compare the responses from different respondents. So these are some of the key decisions which are taken in the case research. So how do you do a case research? The process goes like this. You define the research question. It's like any other scientific research method. First, you start with some research questions that are theoretically and practically interesting, and identify some intuitive expectations about the possible answers to those research questions. You may have some already existing preliminary constructs in the literature to guide your initial case design. These research questions or constructs, they can be changed in case of interpretive case research when you are building stories, and they need not be changed when you are doing a positivist approach. The second step is you select the case sites, right? You should always keep in mind the nature of the research question. You should not have a lot of extraneous variance or noise because of size or where the actual phenomena has happened. And then, for example, if I want to find out how some firms innovate better than others, then I should select firms of similar size within the same industry to actually reduce any industry or size effects. And I select some more innovative and some less innovative firms so that I can compare the findings of why some are more innovative and some are less innovative. Fine. After you have selected the case size, then you create the instruments or the protocol. So it's more like protocol here because questions may be open-ended and they also can arise or can be created when the interview or the focus group discussion is going on. But you should have a protocol like you first, introduce yourself, the purpose of the study, and then you start with some basic questions, and then how it goes. After that, you select the respondents at different organizational level, departments, and positions. Get a divergent perspective on the phenomena of interest. You can use the snowball sampling, which is applicable, which is acceptable, as long as the diversity is represented in the sample. Then you start the data collection. You audio record, video record, and then you transcribe in details like what verbatim, what the person talked about. Then you conduct a within case analysis, cross case analysis. So within case analysis is you make sense of one single narrative, you make sense of interview of one person, and cross cases when you are doing the comparison between two respondents, two interviews, and two narratives. Once these two things are done, based on the themes that you create out of this analysis, you build or test your earlier proposed hypothesis and you write the case research report, what you have identified in your research. So broadly, this is how a case research is done. Now, one of the very famous examples which has got a lot of citations is Eisenhardt's study of how executives make decisions in high velocity environments. So in this particular thing, what she did, she collected data from different sources. High velocity environment, by the way, is where the demand, competition, and technology changes are happening very rapidly. And the information available is also inaccurate or unavailable or obsolete, kind of. So that is called as the high velocity environment. The assumptions where she started was that it is difficult to make decisions in such inadequate information, that such inadequate information is available. Then fast decisions may not be very efficient and may result in poor performance. So these were the two assumptions that she started with. She first reviewed the prior literature on executive decision making, and then in the literature, whatever patterns emerged. When I say pattern is about factors as well as their relationships with respect to the high velocity environment. For example, literature said that interest of expediency, firms that make faster decisions obtain inputs from fewer sources, consider fewer alternatives, make limited analysis, and restrict user participation in decision making. So these were some of the themes which were coming in the literature. She took a note of it, kept them aside, and then she said that these views may not necessarily explain how decision makers make decisions in the high velocity environment. Therefore, it's necessary that I talk to these people. I understand this phenomena in much more detail. She did an inductive study of 8 different firms in the personal computing industry, which is anyways a very high velocity environment industry. And what she did then, she collected data from different ways: interviews with the CEOs, interviews with the division heads. She also used a survey questionnaire to back up the finding of the qualitative research. She used a lot of industry reports, internal documents, such as demographics of the executive teams and personal observation. So these are the different ways in which she collected the data, and then she analyzed the data using the cross-case and single-case analysis. Pairs of firms were compared for similarities and differences in their decision-making capacities. And the decision variables which were of interest were decision speed and firm performance. So she tried to categorize different variables along these lines. And then there were inference. She got the inferences derived. It helped like fast decision makers in high velocity environments used more information. So this was something different she found from the existing literature and as was given. However, the decision makers use more real-time information, which helped them to identify and respond to problems. And again, this was something new that she found during these interviews and this type of qualitative analysis. So this is one example of how you can use this case study method studying firms. Now, when we look at the case studies in case of finance research, 2 of the studies, some of you might have seen it, and if you have not seen it, please go back and read this. Very prominent ones, Holland and Stoner on price-sensitive information disclosures, and Holland and Doran on fund management. These are the 2 important studies which were done using the case study methodology. So the study the research on price sensitivity information, the questions over there were something like, how do company executives define and disclose price sensitive information? How do they operate within the uncertain environment? So define standards of behavior concerning the dissemination of price sensitive information. The other set of financial inclusion research, it was more about how do fund managers acquire information from their investee companies, and so how do you acquire information? What do you do with that information? And what are the different means or ways in which you can get much better clarity of the information for an action. Now, these are some of the exploratory questions that these two researchers they use to understand phenomena in the finance domain. So they again, when they use the case study method, the first thing was familiarize yourself with that particular case. So they looked at the investor meetings and things like people when they say that the investor meetings and company contact, they add value in many different ways. The regular interaction over time allow us to build up a relationship. Something as a long-term shareholder, over time we develop confidence in good performers. So now, when you are asking a question and a person is responding in this manner, like 2-3 sentences which I just spoke, you need to read the case, familiarize yourself, reflect and conceptualize what type of concepts are being talked about. One thing is that the manager or CEO or unit head whose interview you are taking, he or she might not be using the theoretically used technical terminology. They might be using the terminology which they use in their business domain. You have to reflect and conceptualize it to relate it with some theory or some theoretically existing constructs or behavior. After that has been done, then you categorize those concepts into codes, and then you identify you read those cases or narrate